Hello chess friends and welcome to your of Chess channel and welcome back to the European Team Chess Championship in 2021. Today with another great game played by the top grandmaster Alireza Firouzja. Because we're following Alireza so much, I think Alireza has here the opportunity to write chess history, because after 6 rounds Alireza had such a beautiful performance. He had 5.5 points out of the possible 6 points, which is really incredible when you think about it. Harder playing on the first board for your board for the national team is really wild, but of course the opponents are also very strong. So Alireza, as I said, has now here really great opportunities, and I've calculated if Alireza wins now this game against Bd2 Ne7, the Georgian top grandmaster, I think Alireza Firouzja will be only 0.1 points behind Dinglerin, which is really wild. In the next couple of rounds, I think Alireza will catch up with Dinglerin for sure, and Alireza has of course the opportunity to become the second best rated player in the world, but he has also the opportunity to finally reach his 2800 rating mark. So this is now huge opportunity for Alireza, especially when Alireza is playing with the white pieces. He's basically unbeatable. He's creating really wild opportunities. He creates really dynamic positions. So let's check out now what will happen if Alireza finally can catch up with Dinglerin in this super event. So here e4 played by Alireza. We have here c6 by Bd2 Ne7. Bd2 Ne7 is, I think, also respected grandmaster. Maybe not, he's not in this top elite grandmaster level when it comes to ratings, but when it comes to attractive play, when it comes to wild and sharp play, I think Bd2 Ne7 is sort of a guy that you should follow. You can check out many of his games. These games are really beautiful with great tactical elements. So I've expected here really a great tactical battle between two great tacticians, between Alireza and Bd2 Ne7. So here c6 we have the Caro-Kann, d4, d5. After e4 e5 we have the so-called advanced variation, and now many times you see this line bishop to f5 has to be played, because you don't want to lock to the pawn structure here in the center immediately, because you have already blocked out your light square bishop. So it will be a slowed down French setup in which you have already played a passive move c6. So that's why you have to bring out your bishop on f5, and many times this bishop on f5 becomes an object of the attack. So now after knight to f3, here there are in meantime maybe opportunities to attack the bishop further with the move knight to h4. So that's why e6, not allowing knight to h4 immediately. We have bishop to e2. Alireza plays normal development. He wants now to castle kingside. Knight to e7. Bd2 Ne7 is also trying to do the same. h6, bishop to h7, knight to f5, maybe bishop to e7, and then castling is a realistic opportunity here for black. But you see now, when we calculate this tempi that black needs to in order to secure the king, I think it's a slow run. So that's why I'm not a fan really of the Caro-Kann defense, although really Alireza Firouzja, Magnus Carlsen, really the top grandmasters, they can play whatever they like. But maybe in a I don't know, maybe in a worst level of players, I think this Caro-Kann is so exploited sometimes. And you see now also in this particular game that Bd2 Ne7 will have development problems. After move knight to e7, here Alireza secures simply first the king. So normal development. We have now h6, as I said, a new tempo, just in order to create here a path for the bishop, and then a path for the knight, and then a path for the bishop, for the dark square bishop. So it's a long run just in order to secure the king. So here the continuation, knight to d2, we have knight to d7, and here knight to b3. I have watched one game in which Stockfish here, instead of this move knight to d7, immediately played the move c5, sacrificing the pawn temporarily. The game led into this line, d takes c5, knight to c6, and then after knight to b3, here we can attack immediately, maybe with knight to d7, this pawn further. So Stockfish won the game. So maybe this is also something worth the study here, this particular line, which I think gives here more breathing spaces for black. I think finally black can breathe, at least, although it's a temporarily pawn sacrifice, but at least black has some attacking opportunities here in the game. Bd2 Ne7 played knight to d7, preparing first to move c5. This move c5 before the move knight to d7 is a more aggressive method in order to liberate yourself positionally, because the move c5 is actually the main goal of blacks, because we have here the double directed pawn structure. We have talked about these ideas many times in my videos. So when the pawn structure is blocked like this, so the pawns cannot move, the most important thing is to realize where you should attack, and white is of course attacking towards the king side, black is of course attacking towards the queen side, because the pawns are showing us the direction of the attack. So that's why the move knight to d7 is an obvious preparation of the move c5. So that's why here knight to b3. preventing this move c5. Never allow your opponent to do that, or at least slow him down in order to do that, because as we said, bishop to h7, then knight to f5, and then maybe finally c5 is the opportunity. But meanwhile, of course, white can also fix the pawn structure in the center with the move c3. So far normal stuff. Here we have bishop to h7, a4. This is also very important because many times you see after move c5, black will make progress with the potential move b5, and then maybe c4, b4. So black will attack the queen side. So that's why this move a4 is sort of a move which slows down the potential progress of blacks on the queen side. I think in one particular moment, white will lose the battle on the queen side, and of course black will lose a little bit, I think, the battle here when we push the pawns on the king side. So black could also lose the battle on the king side. But at least what you can do when you are defending one side in which you're maybe worst on the board, at least you can slow down your opponent. That's the main issue, and that's why I like this move a4 by Alireza Firouzja. It slows down a little bit the progress of blacks in a potential progress. So that's why here Badurio played now the move a6, and I think Badurio got a little bit tricked here already in an opening stage by Alireza. This move a6 can be, of course, be even paralyzed with a potential a5 move, but here Alireza played, I think, even a slightly better continuation. He played bishop to d2, because now with the move a6 you have already weakened a little bit your dark squares here. So now Alireza, tricky move, here wants to include the bishop through the square a5. So here queen to c7, now rook to c1. A brilliant move again by Alireza. c4 is now an opportunity to liberate now the c file. The rook is already where the queen is, so if the c file gets opened, the queen could be endangered. So here rook to d8, bishop to a5. Of course you have b6, but now after bishop to b4, I hope you realize that Alireza has many missions accomplished here. The pawn structure is weakened. It's not so easy now for black to push the pawn on c5. It's not so easy to liberate now your minor pieces here. Then potential knight to f5 move can be also kicked away with the move g4. So the pieces are a little bit cramped here. The pieces are a little bit stuck here. The development of black is not so good here. So the engine gives you already +1 evaluation here for white, which is really wild. All of the pieces are on the board, but the space that Alireza gained here, I think, is something that bothers now Badurio through the whole game. So here we have now a5. Not a problem, because here Alireza played the tricky move bishop to d6, gets an extra tempo. Here queen to b7, and now queen to d2. Mission accomplished. Look at this. Alireza has now fully developed himself. He has played with all of his minor pieces. He has secured the king by castling, and he has maneuvered the queen from the first rank. He has a rook connection. So these are the actual 3 stages of the opening. When we watch now Badurio position, he is far away from this position in which he has a rook connection, in which he has secured the king by castling, in which he has really a great development. So here knight to c8. So you see the knight has to be maneuvered, but now bishop to f8, of course, knight to f8. Actually, also when we watch the pawn structure, the many pawns are light squares, so trading off the dark square bishops was, I think, also a good idea here by Alireza Firouzja, because his pawn chain is on dark squares. So sometimes when you have maybe a dark square bishop here on e3 and f4, the pawns are basically standing in your way. So that's why this maneuver, bishop to a5, bishop to b4, bishop to d6, gave here Alireza a great opportunity to trade off here the dark square bishop. So here after move knight to e1 was played. This was maybe not the suggested move by the engine, because I'm pointing out this engine moves because Alireza is playing almost like an engine here. So that's why I point out which moves are not top engine moves. Knight to e1 was not actually the suggested move by the engine. h4 it's an opportunity to finally get even further spaces here on the king side. Then something like knight to d7, preparing king side castling, and now h5 I think paralyzes now the whole king side. But maybe Alireza didn't want to weaken also the pawn structure in front of his own king. So that's why knight to e1 is also a brilliant opportunity, because we can now liberate the f pawn and maybe try g4, f4, f5 here, break and enter here on the king side, because as we said, our pawn chain is showing us where we should attack. Now f4 is a realistic opportunity. So here knight to e7, knight to d3, knight to d7, knight to f4, with the opportunities maybe to get this knight on h5. Here we have castling, and now rook to e1, rook to c8, and now c3. Fixing first, of course, the queen side a little bit. As I said, black will break and enter on the queen side. You cannot prevent it, that's not the point, but at least I think we can agree that Alireza slowed down the potential progress of blacks on the queen side. So here, after move rook to c7, we have g4. Finally, at Alireza is attacking now the king side, and now queen to b8, queen to e3, and now queen to d8. This was, I think, now a huge positional mistake here by Baduryobava. The problem about this move, that it's actually an unnecessary move. You don't have to play, of course, this move. I was really surprised when I analyzed the game and when I saw that Baduryobava played this move, because he's a great attacker, he's a great tactician. I'm sure that he saw in one particular moment this move b5, but sometimes there are certain things about particular players that we think about them. Probably he was a little bit scared maybe to go into wild tactical battle against Alireza, but actually b5 would equalize the game immediately. b5 is now a brilliant move. Okay, white can take out this pawn, but you see now after b takes a4, the knight is a little bit out of game. The knight has to find new retreat path. So here in the continuation, rook to a1 maybe could be an opportunity, but now black can also take out this pawn. In one particular moment, white will escape with this knight, but again, I'm pointing out here white lost too many tempi. Meanwhile, black is even slightly better. So that's why you cannot actually take here the pawn on a5. So b5 was the actual opportunity here for Baduryobava. So here, after move queen to e3, as said, queen to d8 played by Baduryobava. Even I think if you don't want to risk b5, you can also play, I think, rook to c8 is a great opportunity. Finally, maybe break and enter with the move c5. At least you're doing something, but this move queen to d8 was a little bit too passive. Sometimes I feel really bad when I criticize a much stronger player than I am, but this move queen to d8 is obviously really a huge mistake here by Baduryobava. So here h3, here king to h8, knight to d2, we have c5. Finally, Baduryobava is trying to break and enter here on the queen side. We have bishop to b5, we have knight to c6, and now king to h2. We have c takes d4, c takes d4. So here with the move c3, again we have a pawn chain. So far the center is not endangered here. If this center would be open, then of course the king on h2 would be a little bit endangered, but so far the pawn structure stayed symmetrical, which is, I think, a good thing for Alireza Firouzja, because we have to say it, in French defenses, in Caro-Kann defenses, white is always the space advantage. So that's why I'm not a fan of the Caro-Kann, I'm not a fan of French defense, because even if the position gets more and more simplified, white has always the space advantage. So black didn't gain anything so far, and I think white has always a slight advantage, even in positional equalish position. So here, after move c takes d4, knight to b4, rook takes c7, queen to c7, queen to c3. You see, white can go even into simplified lines by trading off the queens, because even if queen takes c3 happens, b takes c3, you have to make a decision where to go with your knight. The only square that you have here is actually the move knight to c1, c2, rook to c1, and now in the potential continuation, bishop to d3 is also a nice positional threat, sort of, because the bishop is protecting the knight is a little bit loose on the board. So that's why here after move queen to c3, Baduryobava realized the positional problems, played simply rook to c8, and now Alireza does again the same thing, stays here, and at least he's competing now on the c file. So far a brilliant positional game by the top grandmaster Alireza. So here bishop to c2, here Baduryobava is cutting off the connection between the rook and the queen. The queen has to move now, queen to g3, but actually this move bishop to c2 I think helped out white instead of helping black, because now the bishop is simply pinned, so you cannot move the bishop anymore, and you have improved your opponent's queen in position. So here the queen is now attacking simply the g file, and now in one particular moment we can expect g5 for sure. So here queen to d8, we have bishop takes d7, queen to d7. Great move again by Alireza. He's not allowing here Baduryobava to protect the g5 square. He deflected now the queen from the defense, and now g5, that's the move that we have, or that's the move now that opens the the whole king side. And from this point on, it's, I think, a one-way ticket. Although the evaluation is maybe not so hard for black, but when it comes to, I think, human position understanding, this move G5 is, I think, exploding now. The position makes the position really explode, because now it's a move that opens the position on the king side. Here we have to take h takes G5. We have queen to G5, queen to D8. Here Baba realizes that he has positional problems. He wants to desperately now to trade off the queens, but it's not an option. Queen to H5 comes with the check, and now knight to F3. Look at this setup. You have only, I think, this bishop as a defender in front of the king. The space advantage is so great here. So the a5 pawn is holding the whole position, so you cannot play f6, weaken the pawn structure. And look at this knight. The knights are dancing now in front of black's king. The rook will be included on the g file. So now 4 pieces are storming towards the king side, and it's obviously a worse position here for black. So here g6, rook to g1, brilliant move again by by Alireza Firouzja. Although what I meant to say, Stockfish is again not suggesting the move. For instance, the engines like this move more queen to h6. Here in the continuation, Alireza played rook to g1, because obviously here you cannot take. G takes h5 is not an opportunity. So finally Alireza included now all of the pieces into the game. So here knight to c6, we have now queen to h6. Here Alireza is trying to continue his pressure here around the square g6. He wants also to liberate maybe here the square for the knight. Now knight to h5, and then knight to f6 is now a huge positional idea. So queen to f8, we have queen to h4. You don't want to trade off pieces, of course, when you're on the attacking side. We have queen to g7, and now a brilliant move here by Alireza, knight to h5. And now the fun really starts. Now the game becomes tactical. Basically Alireza has placed now his pieces on the best active squares. So now when you have this kind of a setup, it's almost game over here for black. So here the continuation, queen to h6, was played by Baba, which was maybe not the best of moves. Here he usually played queen to h8. At least he's competing now with the queen on the h file. The only thing that Alireza can do is play this one, knight to f6, king to g7, and now queen to f4. But at least still white is much better. We have to agree to this fact. But at least in this particular scenario, it seems to me that black has defended the position at least temporarily. At least the queen is controlling the h file, which is now the most important thing. Meanwhile, I think we can play even something like knight to e7 and maybe knight to f5, maybe include a new defender into the game. As I said, still white is much better. But this move, queen to h6, is not the best of moves, because here Alireza Firouzja found now really the top engine move, which is really hard to see. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best continuation. Really take your time, because every other move that Alireza could have played is not the best of moves. So there's only one move that is winning the game for white, sort of. Every other move is making a draw for black, or maybe even wins the game for black. So this is really hard to find. I think let's, as I said, stop the video for a while and take your time. Maybe try to find now the best move. So okay, I think most of us would play the move knight to f6. Knight to f6 is not the best of moves. It seems so that it's a brilliant move. Probably even in this particular scenario, white should be slightly better, because here the only move is king to g7. Then you have to play knight to h5, again attacking the king. But now the king can escape through f8. And the only thing in order to keep yourself active is to play queen to f4, sacrificing now the knight. If the knight is taken by the queen, queen to h5, then rook to c1 can be played, paralyzing a little bit the pieces on the c file. Now in the continuation, bishop to f5 can be played, and now knight to g5, protecting the h3 pawn, but also protecting the f7 pawn. And it seems so again that maybe black is losing the game, but there is actually a great defensive idea here. King to e8, you have your fun with one check, but it's not a checkmate. You have this move, king to d8, and after queen to f8, black can always perpetuate king to d7. Here you can play maybe one more check, and again king to d8 has to be played, and I think the game would end in a draw. The problem is here for potential, I don't know, here queen to f8. You cannot play, of course, king to c7, because you get to simply rook to c6. You have to then take, and then of course we can play queen to c8, and it's a checkmate. So that's why the only thing to make a draw here is to play this perpetual king move, king to d7, and then king to d8. So you see how tricky this position can be. I think many of us would play the move knight to f6, which would be a suicide now for white. The move that is winning now the game for Alireza Firouzja is the move rook to g4, improving simply the position of the rook. The rook becomes now wilder and wilder, and the main tactical goal about this move is to play queen to f6, allow your opponent to take the pawn on h5, the knight on h5, and then to play rook to h4, combined with the queen and the rook. White builds this very powerful triangle attack. So now after move rook to g4, from this point on it's a one-way ticket. So Alireza found this move, brilliant attack here by Alireza. Here in the continuation, black wants to escape now, but now, as we said, queen to f6 is now this brilliant move. Here if you take, of course, a queen to h5, then you get rook to h5, rook to h4, and you have to, I think, even sacrifice the queen for a rook in order to stay alive here. So the other opportunity here, sorry about that, let's go back. I wanted to show you one wild line. Even if you try here, let's go back to this particular moment. So let's see what happens in this particular move after move rook to g4. If you not play here the move king to f8, if you play something like, I don't know, knight to b4, let's see, really a bad choice, then you get this one. Knight to f6 is now an opportunity, because you get this one, king to g7, but now actually we can take queen to h6 again. You see how important it was to play the rook lift here on g4. Now rook to h4, you have to play rook to g7. Here rook to h7, there is only one square, king to f8. Again, we include this other piece into the game. Now there is this threat of rook to f7 checkmate, so you have to protect it. You have to play rook to c7, but now rook to h8. You see, you cannot play here rook to king to e7, because you get checkmated on e8. So you have to again get back here on g7. But now this is the most important thing, rook to g8. You play king to h6, and now h4 supporting the knight. Again, we want this knight to stay there, and now in the continuation you can play something like bishop to h5. You don't have better moves. Now knight to g4, we have king to h5, we have king to g3 protecting the knight, and now even if you try, maybe, I don't know, to sacrifice the rook, that's not the point. Knight to f6, and after king to h6 you get knight to f7, a beautiful checkmate. So that would be the continuation. As we said, if you try something else, if you try here knight to b4, or maybe we have analyzed also this idea, as I said, after rook to g4, if you try king to f8, here we can play queen to f6, and that was the actual continuation. Queen to f6. Here Baba tried now knight to d8. He tried to defend here the position in front of the king. He's trying at least to get a new defender into the game, but now Alireza plays this normal idea, rook to h4, getting the rook very active. You cannot take, of course, g takes h5, because you lose the queen on the 6th rank. So here in the continuation, king to g8 was played by Baba. Even if you try, I don't know, let's see other possibilities. If you try something like rook to b8, then you get here knight to f4. You have to move the queen or sacrifice it. Then if you try queen to g7, then you get rook to h8. It's again worse position. Of course, it's game over. You have to give up the queen, and you lose the game. So here after move rook to h4, Baba tried here king to g8, but again a brilliant move here by Alireza, knight to g5. He's trying now to include all of the pieces into the game, and here after g takes h5, here Alireza Firouzja pardon me, here after move queen to g5, knight to g5, here in the continuation, Baba played the move bishop to d1, and maybe you can pause now the video and try to see now the best continuation for white. After that move, Baba immediately resigned. Take your time. It's a brilliant tactic that Alireza saw. So okay, the best move is here, brilliant move by Alireza queen takes d8. After rook to d8, here comes the stunner knight to f6. You have to protect, of course, your queen, or you lose decisive material. So here in the continuation we can play then rook takes h6. After king takes h6, then you get knight to f7, and it would be game over. So as I said, after rook to d8, queen takes here on d8 in this position, Badur resigned. So brilliant attack here by Alireza Firouzja. First, he I think surprised a little bit Badur in the opening stage. The pieces were not active of blacks. Then Alireza made a couple inaccuracies, allowed Badur to get maybe back into the game with this potential b5 move that we have analyzed. But then when Alireza has the opportunity to attack, then he's not missing any tactics. He found really the best top engine moves and has now a deserved win, which means now, as we said, after this win, Alireza has now 2,798 points. He's only 0.1 points behind Nd3 when it comes to this classical time format rating. I think in this tournament he'll catch up with Nd3, and I think in the next round Alireza will make his 2800 rating elo. I wish him, as I said, all of the best. This was simply the best month of Alireza's career. He won his this Grand Swiss tournament. He has here really a brilliant performance. He has now 6.5 points out of a possible 7 points. Really brilliant performance, and as I said, this is simply I think a historical moment in chess. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. If you want to see more Alireza games, check out my analysis so far with some other top games by the top grandmaster Alireza. And if you want to see maybe the best chess games of all times, check out my best chess games of all time series there, in which we have analyzed some Garry Kasparov games, Mikhail Tal games, really some brilliant games from the past. And if you want to study the top engine games, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some great games played by Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, Stockfish, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.